of soul.
This is Bass Talk Live. Your host, Mark Jeffries and Matt Pangrack. BTL is brought to you by Lowrance, Lose, Strike King Lures, Bass Cat Boats, Ducket Fishing, Spro, AFCO, Big Bite Baits, Sunline, and TH Marine. BTL coming at you. Good Tuesday, everybody. Welcome once again to another edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we're going to talk bass fishing and anything else that we want to talk about. Yes, we have action going on at Sandusky, and Matthew, today we're going to find out a lot about you.
About me?
That's what I said.
Okay. Elaborate, please.
I have a list here, all right, of situations.
God. Okay.
And we're going to go through these situations, and the fans and I are going to see what you would do.
This isn't the cognitive test that they gave Charles Barkley, is it?
No.
Okay, good, because I failed that too.
No. So before we get to our guest, we will do that. I want to let everybody know, really good show today. We're going to have Bernie Schultz on. He's going to talk about his New York swing and send me some pictures of the lures that he used, and we're going to talk about this. Some interesting choices, and really excited to have Bernie on. And then also, toward the second half of the show, actually during the second half of the show, we will have Bradley Hallman on live via our software, and he's going to talk a little bit about what he has been doing and how he has recovered fully. Talked to him last night, talked to him this morning from the COVID-19 situation. So good show today. And yesterday, dude, I got to tell you, this training that I got to go through, it looks like we're not going to be able to do a third show this week. Man, Matt, I just don't know how to describe. There is like no in between.
Explain what it is. You're a teacher. Everyone knows you're a teacher, but this is COVID-19
training for the. There are school districts all across the nation that are in. I don't even know what to call it. It's not confusion. It's kind of like they're in a dilemma on what do you do? Do you go online? Do you do a combination of online and in person? Or do you just say, you know what? We're sending everybody to school.
So it's not just college football is what you're saying.
Dude, anything to do with any school right now is just, it's very, very, very challenging. So I have come to the conclusion of this. You have people out there, parents, teachers, professors, people in the education business that are very passionate about whatever choice that they have decided, whatever path that they're going to go down, whether or not they believe that students should be in school or doing online class. And you know, quite honestly, me, I don't even know what to think anymore. I really don't.
Just roll with it and see what happens.
That's all I'm doing, man. I didn't say a word yesterday, if you can imagine.
There you go. So the studio is also, if you flipped our studio cameras around, there's a corner that usually has a bunch of camera stuff. It is completely cleaned out. And yesterday,
the corner is bare.
Jeffries, after the show, was like, man, I got to get on this. And he was calling experts and he was calling people. And there's a big purchase in your life that you're really excited about.
Big purchase.
It's a pretty big purchase. You're buying a drill press?
A mill
for your bowling balls.
Yeah.
So I never even realized it. I just thought you ordered a bowling ball and it came. But they technically, like when you get to your above average level and know the game really well, the ball just comes with no holes in it.
Yeah, and then you have to lay it out.
And then you lay it out based on your. Would it be the equivalent of making your own rods? Like that MHX where you get it and you're like, okay, I like a fast action. I like a
pouring
split
your
grip.
own molds, doing that kind of stuff. Yeah,
I got you. So that's going down in the studio. Also, I wanted to talk about, you know what is it's never talked about, and it's like a safety issue, and it's like a good problem to have.
What's that?
dealing with those cuts on your hands, like after you catch them. I mentioned yesterday I did the sand bass.
You got it hammered, man.
You see that cut right there?
Is it infected?
Well, it was getting red and inflamed.
Not good.
And it's something that the guys who catch them all the time have to deal with. But guys like me and you, 2-3 times a year, maybe tops, unless unless you're played with your fish of the live well. But man, I've done the hydrogen peroxide, the rubbing alcohol, and then the Neosporin.
How about the Jack Daniels?
No.
You haven't poured the Jack Daniels on there? No,
the Neosporin and then bandaged it. And it's not red and not as inflamed this morning.
But still hurts.
Yeah. Those things
toughen up, man.
Those things will slice you. I got 3 of them on one hand.
Toughen up. Panger. Come on, man.
So.
All right. I want to do this. All right. We're going to find out what Matt Pangrak's all about.
Oh, my gosh. What is this? Is this in the fish world?
Oh, it's fishing. Yeah.
Oh, it's fishing.
Yeah, it's fishing. Okay.
Is it? Okay. I'll just roll
it. Is related. It is related to decisions that were made this morning, maybe even last night, when it comes to the situation going on at Lake Erie.
Do you run to the 50 miles to St. Clair?
Now, hang on. Will you wait? All right? And let me get through this. All right? 3 different scenarios. You're in 10th place in the points. You had a good practice. All right? You practice in St. Clair. You also practice in the main lake by the islands.
Okay.
All right? Second situation. You're in 50th place. And remember, they take the top 50 to the championship.
That must be nice.
All right. You're currently in 50th place.
Okay. So you're on the bubble.
You had a decent practice, but the guy you're rooming with is absolutely smashing them in St. Clair and gave you the juice.
Okay.
But you had a decent practice, found some stuff, found some boulders.
Not in St. Clair.
Not in St. Clair.
Okay.
Okay. And then the third situation is you've cashed 1 check. You're sitting in 92nd place in the points. You had nothing in practice. Did not have a good practice. All right. What do you do? All right. Let's start out with that situation right there.
Okay.
You're sitting in 92nd. You had a horrible practice. Your best day probably had 13, 14 pounds of smallmouth. You fished for largemouth a little bit. You probably could have had 15 pounds in largemouth. You're here. They're absolutely smashing them in St. Clair. But the weather forecast is calling for winds 10 to 15 out of the northeast.
Now, here's the key question.
What are you going to do?
What is your financial situation? Because that dictates a lot of decisions.
I'm not even going to go in there. We're not even going to go down that path. Right? Like I said, you got 1 check this year. You're sitting really, really bad in the points, 92nd. What are you going to do? Dude, I didn't mean to stump you. Jeez.
Well, that's really because here's what you do. If you make the run to St. Clair, you risk potential injury. You devalue.
I know all the scenarios. I want to know what you're going to do.
What do you do if you're in 92nd?
What would you do?
What would I do?
If you're in that situation. Crappy practice.
Did I practice in St. Clair?
No. Jeez.
In that situation?
Yeah.
I think you just try to go to St. Clair, and if you get there, you get there, and if you don't, you don't. Because what's the difference between 92nd and 115th?
Okay, even with a 10 to 15 mile an hour wind.
I think you give it a shot. You test the water, so to speak. And if it's sketchy,
that's what you would do.
Yes, but I would not put myself in a precarious or my equipment in a precarious situation. If I felt like it was getting sketchy, I would not push it in that situation. And then I would peel off and I would have no problem turning around, but at least I would say, hey, I gave it a shot.
Okay. Second situation. You're sitting in 50th in the points. Mm-hmm. You had a decent practice around the islands.
But your buddy's smashing them.
Your roommate is absolutely just demolishing them up in St. Clair.
That's an easy decision.
What are you going to do?
I'm staying around the islands because I know I can get there and I'm not going to put the fate of my championship in someone else's hands. If I had a decent practice and made the decision before not to go to St. Clair and feel like I can grind it out and maximize my fishing time, if I go and I catch 8 pounds, that's on me. If I run to St. Clair, here I am. I've spent the entire season putting myself in position to succeed based on decisions that I made, and then my decision on the year is based on what someone else is telling me. I'm going to the islands 100%.
But you trust him.
I trust him 100%, but it's not your fish. And even though it's totally legal and it's totally good, like I said, I want that to be my decision. I want that critical decision where my season hinges on it.
And you had a decent practice.
To be my decision, I'm going to be able to maximize it, and I'm going to be taking the uncontrollable variables out of the equation. As far as running, as far as wind, as far as weather. It's still going to be rough, but I'm going to maximize my fishing time. I'm going to have confidence that I'm around fish, and I don't really have to blast them in order to make that top 50. But if I go out and don't catch them, I'll sleep at night knowing that I did it on the decisions that I made, not, I can't believe I ran 50 miles and only fished for 2 hours and hadn't even been there. What was I thinking? I can live with not catching them around the islands after a decent practice. It was my decision, the fish that I found.
All right. Third situation. You're in 10th place in the points. You had a great practice in St. Clair. You had a great practice around the islands. All right. You're catching 17, 18 pounds a day around the islands, but you could bust out a 22, 23 pound limit, all right, for 3 days that you've got enough fish for 3 days on St. Clair. On day 3, the weather forecast is for 15 to 20 out of, let's just say, the southeast.
I feel like they might not go out if it's 20. Wow. No, 100%.
What are you going to do?
100% there. If I have a chance to win the Angler of the Year, where there's no payout further down the Angler of the Year except first, you want the trophy. You've got Rod Nelson with a big lead. You know that mid-20s is almost impossible on the lake before you go to, not in St. Clair, but on Erie. But you also have some backup fish, so you have a solid game plan. That's where I'm making the run no matter what. And if I get to fish for an hour and don't catch them, I say, hey, at least I put myself in position. I don't know if I'll ever be in that position to win an Angler of the Year again. Maybe Rod Nelson isn't going to make that run because he's got a 50-point lead. He tanks. You make the run. You land on him. It's one of those, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be scenarios. If it's not, you're not going to drop below 50th, so you're still in the title. And if you catch him really good out of Lake Erie, you're not going to win the Angler of the Year anyway. So you got to freaking go for it and then play it by ear, because if it's 15 to 20 on the third day and you're able to get 2 days out of St. Clair, you're going to be way ahead of the ball because no one else is going to be able to go to St. Clair on the third day either.
All right. Now it's very easy to sit here and say that you would do one thing and be out on the water, and when you go around those break walls, all of a sudden there's 6 to 8 footers out there.
See, this is what surprised me. So the Bassmaster Open on the river, and you watched Hallman, who said we're going to talk about, and Scott Martin stuff in Cassadine. It seemed like they were really struggling on whether to lock or not and the time and stuff.
Yeah.
Like I had just already put it in my head before that tournament, regardless of what the situation was, I was going to lock down to Kerr. And knew that I might have 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours to fish.
Right.
And I feel like, and I've said this before, those Great Lakes and the runs like that, that's exactly the same as locking. Because once you're committed to it, you're committed to it.
Yeah.
And I think when you're making those long runs, I mean, you can't have any doubt whatsoever. You have to either say, I'm going or I'm not going, in my opinion. Because you have to be mentally prepared for that.
All right. Do you think that the vast majority of the field, the decision has already been made before they ever even get outside that break wall? In other words, when they're sitting there and their numbers?
No, because it's different.
Okay.
I think you've got guys who will say, once I get out there, then I'm either 100% in or 100% out. I mean, like you've got a lot of guys who are familiar with that water, and you really can't tell what it's like. I mean, you've been on Erie, you've been on those Great Lakes. You can wake up in the morning and be like, oh, it's not really blowing that much, but you've got residual wind, you have wind direction, you have, like last night there were storms there, and the guys were like, oh, it's not supposed to blow that hard, but they got to the boat ramp.
Yeah.
And Lake Erie's big, and it takes a long time for those waves to settle down. So I think the guys who are used to it have 2 game plans. And as soon as they see what's up, they're all in on one of those two game plans. The guys who know what's going on. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't really be indecisive if you're going to make a 50-mile run in 5 footers.
You know what surprised me is I watched a little bit of the footage this morning, early footage, and a couple of the guys, they didn't have butt seats in the boat. How can you fish on that body of water and not have a butt seat? Now, I know I'm an old man.
No, I would have a butt seat up
but
there.
I was kind of blown away by the fact, and one of them was Gray Buck, that did not have a butt seat.
Well, he's a spry young man.
I mean, even from a safety standpoint, when you're trying to fish and trying to, fish vertically and do what you do in 4 to 6 footers, it kind of becomes a safety issue a little bit.
As he said,
or am I just being a wimpy old man?
No, it's 100% a deal. You see a lot of the guys will have the butt seats just to lean and hang on. So
yeah. Well, I'm impressed with your answers. At the same time, those decisions that were made this morning when those guys came out of those break walls, I really would like to know. We'll never know from the vast majority of the field, but it would be interesting to get some insight to see if the decisions were made prior to that exit.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, you take those 3 scenarios, and the only one that I would really push it to St. Clair in that scenario at all is 10th.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, to me,
with the shot to win.
Yeah, with the shot to win AOY, and you can't fall out of the title, and you can't win it without having mega bags, and you might maybe not even be able to win it with mega bags. But I mean, you've obviously made good decisions the rest of the year to put yourself in 10th place.
Yeah.
But I mean, is the juice worth the squeeze for the guy in 90th?
Wow.
And
I like the fact that you brought up, well, what's the financial situation?
Yeah, I mean, if I think I can scratch out a check and get, $10K and finish in the top 100, like I do percentages. If I think I've got a 50% chance of cashing the check, staying close and playing it safe, or and a 5% chance of making the top 10, or a 20% chance of finishing the top 100, but a 10% chance of making the top 10 with the run. I mean, I'm gonna play that for the bank account. 50th, I don't think there's any way you go to St. Clair.
I agree with you.
It just doesn't make. I mean, you want to catch as much weight as possible, and you also have to remember there's going to be a lot of BPT guys ahead of you or behind you who are going to affect the points. So I mean. Just slow and steady the 50th, there's one way you cannot make the title, and that's not show up to weigh in. 100%. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
So take that take that variable out of the equation. Make sure, regardless of what you have, you're going to get back to weigh in.
I want to go back to what Frank said yesterday. And by the way, if you have not checked out that show, you need to. One of the best shows of the year. Frank Scalish, outstanding on BTL yesterday. Remember what he said? Yeah, you might gain a man card, but it's stupid. Mm-hmm. Now, let me ask you this real quick, and then we're going to take a break and hopefully come back with Bernie Schultz. How much does fear play into this game at the highest level? And I know guys want to be macho and say, I'm not afraid of anything or anything like that. But do you think at all fear factors into decisions?
At the highest level?
Yeah.
No.
There is no such thing as fear.
Not fear. That's like asking an NHL player if he's scared to go into the corner.
No, it's different, dude.
No, it's not different.
It is. I think that's a different scenario.
No, I think a fear is spawned from...
Because you have options. You don't have options not to chase the puck in the corner.
No, you do.
What, you going to pull up and be a wuss?
Yeah, you see guys do it all the time.
Dude, that's part of the game, though.
But no, I know, but that's at the highest level. They've seen that. They know how to go in the corner and be safe in the NHL. They know when you get to a certain level how to get up against the boards, absorb a shock, where the defense is coming. It's the same thing in fishing. So they've seen those scenarios.
I get it. That's a great point.
It doesn't mean that they won't turn around, that they won't stop. But do I think that fear? I think fear is the unknown and not knowing what to do in that scenario. And the vast majority of these guys, to get to this level, have seen so many scenarios that they can assess the danger and take the fear out. And that doesn't mean they're not cautious. It doesn't mean they can't get nervous. I mean, the only time I think you see these guys truly be afraid, lightning.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way you could prepare for,
So does fear influence decisions at the highest level? What do you think?
No.
Okay. I wanted your thought on that.
Do you?
For the seasoned veterans, for the guys that have been around a long time, I don't think so. I think for some of the younger pros, maybe. And I think a lot of it depends on what the situation is.
Yeah, I think
not just
based on your practice and preparation,
water,
you can remove a lot of fear out of the equation. Now, are there times that guys have been afraid? Yeah, but is it mainly because of mechanical failure or something that happened out of their control or something? Yeah. But do I think you have guys who make decisions based out of, like,
fear?
You're talking safety fear, right?
Yeah.
No.
All right. Well, we might ask Bernie. He's been doing it a long time. He spent a lot of time on the Great Lakes, a few times.
I mean, I think there might be a time or two, like getting back or something where someone finds themselves in a situation where they're fearful, but I don't think that fear
influences decisions.
Influences their decision making.
All right. It's good discussion, man. Good stuff. All right, we're coming back with Bernie Schultz here on a Tuesday. Everybody stay tuned.
The ultimate fishing system starts with Lowrance HDS Live. The best fish finding tools, from chirp sonar and fish reveal to side scan and down scan imaging, and complete touchscreen control from your trolling motor to your big motor.
We've paired one of the most iconic hulls in the history of bass boats with a proven lineup of trusted accessories. We're bringing you best-in-class value and performance, leaving others in your wake. Turnkey value, turnkey performance. The Pantera 2 is an overachiever in the 19-foot category. Once you hit the throttle, you'll feel the rush, and there's no looking back.
Kevin, what are you doing here?
Oh, I'm just filling in for Billy.
I need a 660 shad crankbaits in the Series 5 model.
We're out.
You're not out. You got all kinds of them right there.
We're out.
Kevin, I need 6.
Have a lollipop.
I do not want a lollipop.
Have a lollipop.
Do you have it in sexy shad color?
At Duck It Fishing, we have assembled the top pros in the country to help us design rods to give you a competitive advantage. Castability, strength, durability, action, sensitivity, weight and balance, and consistency. Combine that with the best warranty in the industry, and you have rods that are pro-driven.
Duck It Fishing, pro-driven.
Blue Water by TH Marine. Offering LED lighting solutions for your boat, trailer, truck, ATV, and so much more. Engineered and built to be rugged with waterproof and submersible options. Designed for easy installation, Blue Water is available in a variety of colors and styles. All backed by a limited lifetime warranty. Blue Water by TH Marine.
Let's face it, fishing electronics are no longer an afterthought. They've become a necessity. And at the Bass Tank, our experts match you with the right electronics, provide professional installation, and educate you to help maximize your catching results while providing support along the way. Because let's be honest, it's about catching, not just fishing. And when you're ready for better results, join the Bass Tank team. Visit us today on Facebook or go to thebasstank.com.
Hey everybody, Tide Faircloth here. Want to show you one of my favorite braided lines, SX1 30-pound Sunline braid. I use this braided line for a couple of different applications, and one of my favorites to use for this line is a swim jig. Casts great, and it's small diameter, and just works really great on a swim jig. Another technique I like to use for 30-pound SX1 Sunline braid is whenever I'm flipping like a light, say an 1/8 to a 1/4 ounce weight in grass, small diameter, I don't lose much action on my worm, just works great in those scenarios. So if you're looking for a braided line for a swim jig or fishing a light Texas rig, check out Sunline's SX1 30-pound braid.
All right, we are back on a Tuesday. It is time for our special guest today. And, dude, you did pretty good with that. Got to give it up to you.
With the scenarios?
Yeah. Yeah, it was good stuff. I kind of sprung that on.
What did you think I'd go with?
Dude,
Do you think I would go full send?
Yeah.
In all three scenarios?
Yeah. You're one of those no fear kind of guys.
No, that's not true. And plus, I have been out on Lake Erie with Darren Schwinkbeck. There's a name from the past.
Yeah.
And have seen, I don't want to say what poor decision making can lead to, but I mean, I've seen that you could get in a pickle real quick out there. He's like, hey, dude, let's run the troughs. I'm like, why? He's like, because it's fun.
All right, let's bring in Bernie. Bernie, how you doing, man?
I'm good. Good morning.
Hey, thanks for taking time out. Great stuff. I don't know if you've been listening to the stuff that we've been talking about the Great Lakes, but have you ever been in a situation where you were afraid or ever made decisions prior to a tournament based upon fear?
Safety fear. We have to. There's multiple types of fear. There's fear of, oh my God, I'm not going to catch one. That's a horrible type of fear. And then there's like I'm scared to make that run to go do that.
Yeah, I mean, fear of failure maybe be the primary concern. But one time, guys, I was. It was a tournament on the St. Lawrence, and we were able to go to the lake, and I was fishing with Randy Mosley, if you remember him, from Missouri. And Randy was on a bunch of fish in Chameau Bay. We made the run down there, had a really banner day, catching them on top waters. And when it came time to come back, I got to the mouth of Chameau Bay where you enter the lake, and there's a long tapering point there, a point that I tagged the point of no return. It was huge. There were like 10 and 11, 12-foot waves rolling through there. And there was like 25 or 6 boats sitting there, nobody willing to take the chance until Ken Cook went. And when I watched Ken, and Randy was a young guy, he was all fired up. He said, we can make it, we can make it. Well, we were in my boat, and I didn't think we could make it. And I was thinking, man, I got this great stringer of fish, and we're going to have to call for a trailer. But then we watched Ken Cook, and he basically tacked into the wind, into the waves, like a sailboat would. And he just angled out to the west, or actually to the south, and then tacked back to the north, gradually advancing his way to the west. And he eventually made it around the point. And at that point, I said, well, if he can do it, we can do it. And to my knowledge, we were the only 2 boats that attempted it, and we did make it back that day. But I'm going to tell you, I was scared.
Wow, that's a cool story.
That is a cool story.
But as far as like you've never had an instance where you were like, oh, I want to go to Chameau Bay, and you make the run, and then you just are like, I'm too scared to do it. Like,
well, I was. I mean, you just basically wrapped up what I just told you. I mean, I've never been afraid to make the run going out. The anticipation of catching fish is so great. You kind of, everything else gets put to the side. But that day, I didn't think we were getting back. If not for having Randy and also Ken Cook leading the way, I probably would have never attempted it.
I mean, you've been doing this a million years now. As a compliment, you're almost at 400, I believe, 400 tournaments with bass? I had it pulled up because I was doing another cool stat about the little roll that you're on there. Yeah, 333 tournaments with bass. But do you think these young guys that are out there, their first year on tour, first or second year, do you think they make more decisions based on fear than the veterans? Mark kind of brought that up, and I mean, you would know that.
I mean, I don't know. I can't speak for them. I can tell you when I was young, there was I don't know if there's fear, but you were really anxious to the point where it might have felt like fear. You know, the desire to do well and to catch fish is so great. I think you repress all that stuff and just go for it at that age.
All right. Well, Bernie, man, part of the reason why I wanted to get you on the show, just a really, really solid New York swing. But when we were setting this call up, I got to tell the fans, you seemed a little disappointed because I got the feeling that you thought it should have been better.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I had pretty high expectations going up there. I've been able to produce well in the past. I've had a couple of glitches here and there. One was a mechanical one year. Another year was all on me. But I just felt like I should have been in the top 10, at least in one of those two events. It was a good tour in New York, but it wasn't a great or stellar tour in New York. And I've improved my position. But I'll be honest with you, I thought I'd be better.
All right, let's talk about the SLR first. What would you have done different?
Man, that's tough. I mean, I think I made a good choice. I lost a couple of key fish that would have put me in the top 10 in that event. One on the first day, one on the third day. I mean, these were tank smallmouth, and I lost both of them. But I had a really strong game plan. I had some areas to myself in the river for smallmouth, which is hard to do, shallow, in fact. And then I had a backup on largemouth that was really productive. That was the reason I stayed in the river as opposed to going to the lake. I found some really good schools of fish in the lake, but I didn't have that largemouth backup as an option. It was to the northeast, downriver from Clayton, so you couldn't do both. You either go to the lake or you go downriver to the other fish. And so I opted to take probably the more secure approach, and I wanted to make sure I had those largemouth as a backup, and they paid off huge.
You first fished the St. Lawrence back in 1987, so you have over 30 years of experience on that fishery. Obviously, it didn't take the massive weights to win back then
right.
that we see now, but do you still fish some of the stuff that you fished back in the 80s? Like, I mean, are there spots that you fished on the St. Lawrence for 30 plus years that still produce?
Absolutely. Yes, sir. A shoal is a shoal, a sandbar is a sandbar. A weed bed, if it replenishes, is a, those are magnets for smallmouth. And the weed beds for largemouth are, they're pretty consistent. Those bays are shallow, the bottom's soft, milfoil grows there, hydrilla grows there. There's other kinds of pondweed. Yeah, I mean, if the habitat's stable, the fish are going to return to those places even 30 years later. They're still going to be there.
What do you remember? You fished it, I was looking at the stats at 87. You fished a Bassmaster team championship.
Yeah.
Out of Clayton there. Who did you fish with, and how did that go down? You finished 31st in that. You got a whopping $690. I think did you have to split that too with your partner?
No, everybody got that amount.
Okay.
It was a fun tournament. I was actually a team captain in that event. The guys that finished highest among their team members were considered the captains. To be honest with you, I can't remember. A lot of those guys came and went that season, or the following season. There's been a lot of faces since then, but I didn't have anybody notable on my team that's survived all these years on the tour or any length of time on the tour. There was a lot of turnover back then.
How did that work though? Jeffries is big on the team idea of doing an event with teams and stuff. Do you remember how that worked, Mark?
No, I don't.
How did you decide the teams? Was it a one-off or was it a series?
It was decided by your finish. It's like they took a guy at the one would be with 21st and then 41st, and then just as an example, they divide it in 4 brackets, and then they take the top guy from each bracket and pair them together, and then that's my recollection anyway. Huh. Kind of a weird way to do it. Interesting tournament, but I don't think we need to be doing those again.
What year was that, Matt?
1987, out of Alexandria Bay in Clayton, New York.
Yeah, the average smallmouth back then was 2+ pounds, and if you had a 3-pound average, you were doing good. If you had anything more than that, you were practicing your speech.
Huh. Bernie, this last 2 tournaments is the first time since 2015 that you've gone back-to-back top 20 finishes. So, I mean, that's pretty impressive there. You did it in 15 and in 12, and both of those included a Northern Swing event, too.
Yeah.
So,
why are you so good on these Northern lakes when you're in Florida? So many people on the instant feedback, Bernie, they want to know, what does a guy do from the South to get good on these smallmouth lakes?
I just liked them. First time I got there, I went with a buddy of mine, Gary Simpson. He's a tackle shop manager here in my hometown. We went up there together, and he fished as a non-boater in that tournament, and we just liked it from the start. And I spent a lot of time up there after that, just kept going. It was kind of like a summer ritual trip, just always did that. I fished the Canadian Open for a number of years, and other events. I fished the Operation Bass had a series called the Golden Blend Series, which was like their high dollar, which that basically transitioned to FLW. And I fished those events up there, and anytime bass went, I went. So it's just, going back and liking the place. The only advantage I think maybe I have is because of my background in saltwater flats fishing, sight fishing in saltwater. You do a lot of that with smallmouth, cruising smallmouth, and I've had situations where that has really played into, my approach.
All right, let's talk about Champlain now. Stop number 2 on the swing. What are your thoughts about that, and what would you have changed?
There again, a couple of key fish, and I'm right there. I just I didn't get the monster bite. I tried. My primary focus was smallmouth. Not initially. I tried to make Ticonderoga work the first day of practice, and the water was so low, the grass was just it was high and dry. So I wrote that off and committed to the smallmouth with a, backup largemouth pattern in the north part of the lake for docks and shallow grass. And I found some, but I just never got I got a couple of 4-pounders largemouth, but I never got the 5 or 6-pounder that you need to get you over the hump. So I was kind of right there, close, but not able to get over the line.
Now, the photo that you sent me of the baits that you used, was that at Champlain?
No, that was actually both locations, more so on the river. But
okay, here, I'm going to throw that up now so you can see it there. Talk a little bit about what you used.
Okay, the one on the left, that's a little swim bait I designed for redfish, actually, in saltwater, but I found out years ago at a Waddington event that it was really good for smallmouth. In fact, I made the top 10 with that bait at Waddington, and I've done really well with it since. I always throw that bait on the northern lakes now. It's the right profile, right size. The head's made of tin, which you can retrieve it super slow in real shallow water and keep it up high in the water column. That's an Elastec boot tail trailer that's on there, the Z-Man trailer. So it's very durable. That's my go-to swim bait. The next bait is a Yamamoto 4-inch Senko on a Ned rig head. That's a VMC mushroom head that I use for Ned rigging. And then you have a Rapala jerkbait. Sometimes a shadow wrap, sometimes the ripstop. Both of them are really good depending on the depth I'm fishing one or the other. And that's the color I like. The top bait is the Skidder V. And that bait kind of speaks for itself. It's a topwater walking bait. Comes in a couple of sizes. That's the smaller size. It's so easy to walk that bait, and it's got a deep knocking sound in it, but it also has high pitched rattles in it as well. And it's so easy to walk. Even a young kid can make that thing walk on his first cast. And then the go-to when I'm really trying to make things happen, if I can't get the other baits to work, I go to the shad-shaped worm on a drop shot. That's a VMC outfit, the hardware, the tungsten weight and the hook. And that's a shad-shaped worm by Yamamoto.
Couple of things. I want to go back to that tin head, TIN, yes, correct? Yep. And then that Elastec is also a very buoyant plastic. So, I mean, you look at it and it looks like, if you're listening on iTunes, it looks just like a 3.5-inch swim bait on a 3/8 ounce head because it's got a pretty solid hook in there. But if you're willing to, talk a little bit about that tin head and what is the actual rate of fall on that bait? Because I would imagine I mean, you could almost stop that thing and it stays in the water column, right?
It doesn't sink fast, that's for sure. Tin by volume is about 2/3 the density of lead. So it's, or 2/3 the weight of lead by volume. So it's, it's a bait that I can keep a large profile to match the body size of the swim body, the Elastec body, and still have all the lifelike features, the gill, the eye. But the reason I designed that bait for redfish is we fish super shallow for them here in Florida and throughout the Gulf Coast, actually, and up the eastern coast. Redfish can get as shallow to the point where their backs are out of the water and they're comfortable. So you need a bait that you can traverse that type of habitat. And sometimes you're throwing over, grass. It might be turtle grass, which is a real short eel grass, or it might be marl. It might be oyster beds. And so when you're throwing lead, that thing's in the dirt as soon as it hits the water. With this bait, you have a chance to keep it up in the water column and traveling at a pretty slow rate of speed, which I figured out. You can also burn it. The smallmouth want it quicker than that. But it's just an adaptation. I just happened to have one with me when we went to Waddington, and it was in a gaudy chartreuse and pink color, and they loved it. And
that's cool.
Yeah, it's a neat bait. It's like you said, it's 3.5 inch. It's a 3.5 inch body, 3/8 ounce head, and Hildebrandt makes it.
And then the next thing that you mentioned, and we hear a lot about smallmouth, sight feeders, tack, the bright colors. You look at the color of the jerkbait, it looks kind of like a chrome clownish kind of color, and then the top water. But you mentioned the word pitch in the rattles, and something that I haven't really heard much talk about is the rattle pitch that smallmouth prefer. Do you think that's an important part of getting those fish to commit to a topwater or rip style bait on whether a high or low pitch rattle, or is that just kind of a preference thing?
No, I do. I actually do. I think it's important. I mean, lures are tools, as you know, and each tool has a job or an application. To me, it's important to have a variety of topwaters or a variety of jerk baits. Like the X-Wrap, the original X-Wrap has a single knocker in it, and it's a deep guttural sound. When you work that bait, it transmits a pretty deep, deeper sound than say a Shadow Wrap. And yeah, I do. I think the pitch matters. It could be from day to day or fish to fish, but I carry a variety of these baits, and sound is a big important factor as much as color.
Is that just more in smallmouth because of their curiosity, or do you think that sound imitates the prey, a bait fish, the clicking, the clacking, or moving, or is it just something that...
Yeah, I don't think it's anything to do with the forage or imitating the forage. Maybe the profile or the color does, but I think the sound is just something that's aggravating or raises their curiosity. Fish don't have hands, so if they want to inspect something, they basically have to bite it.
There you go.
All right, good stuff. All right, I want to get back to Champlain and practice. When you made the decision to just kind of ditch Ticonderoga, did you say, and I'm sorry I wasn't paying attention, did you say that you actually spent some time practicing down there?
I spent a whole day down there, and I really tried to make it work. We got there. I traveled with Cliff Prince, another Florida pro out of Palatka.
Yeah.
And we, when we got over there from the St. Lawrence, we decided we'd spend our first day at Ticonderoga. So we drove down there. We got there a little after sunrise, and we stayed till dark. And we gave it every effort. And I caught fish. I caught them up to 4, maybe 4.5 pounds, using a variety of lures, but I never could zero in on a concentration. And because it's such a long distance from Plattsburgh, even on a good day, you're talking 50 minutes to an hour to get just to the fort. If there's wind, it could be 2 hours. So it's important to find a concentration of fish so that you're not running around haphazardly trying to fill out a limit or cull up. You want to be zeroed in on schools of fish that you know will deliver the weight you need if you commit to that run. I never could find that. It was a fish here, a fish there, a few fish in one spot, but nothing of the size that made me want to come back. So I basically scrapped it.
All right, so you put together a game plan, not making the run. What did that plan consist of?
I stayed in the north part of the lake. The farther south I went after that point was Mallett's Bay. And we found fish in Mallett's Bay. I went over there with Cliff. He had never been there before, and I showed him a few areas that I like, and he expanded on those and found some good areas of his own. But I found this smallmouth stretch. It was on an island. It was a grass bed and about 12 to 16 feet of water. And it was like every cast in practice. I mean, every drop with a shad-shaped worm I had a fish on. I got off of that and tried to expand. I found other areas like it, but they didn't have the numbers of fish, but they did have some quality. And at that point on, I committed to the smallmouth. I did find a few places where I could catch fish on a dock pattern or by fishing shallow matted milfoil, but it was a fish here and a fish there. There was nothing I could really land on and really make happen with any consistency. So smallmouth was my focus.
All right. Hey, a number of people on the instant feedback want to know, would you rather try and go after smallies or largemouth?
That's Cliff Prince calling in right now. Sorry about that. Say that again. I'm sorry. Smallmouth.
A lot of the people on the instant feedback, they want to know, would you rather fish for largemouth or smallmouth?
I'd rather fish for smallmouth. I mean, they're a treat to a guy from Florida, especially. They never give up. They can be caught so many different ways. Plus, you're fishing in beautiful habitat normally, especially up north. The water's usually clear. The surroundings are scenic. The temperatures can be in the 70s, low 80s, whereas in the south we're in the hundreds, 90s. That's a gimme.
Are there any smallmouth in Florida? Like anywhere, like transplants, deep pits, anything?
No, there are shoal bass. We have a Swanee bass that they're almost identical in appearance. But the world record's under 4 pounds for one of those, and catching a 3-pounder is a feat.
Huh. Interesting. All right, I want to talk about this real quick, and then we're going to get your thoughts on the remainder of the season. You sent me a picture of a snook. What's the scoop on that?
Came out of Champlain on that top water.
No, it didn't come out of Champlain, but I use that. If you look close in the fish's mouth, you'll see that same little swim bait.
Oh, okay.
I use that for snook. That's kind of a universal lure. I've caught big tarpon with that thing. My son and I, my oldest boy likes to fish quite a bit. Both boys do, but my older son's more avid. We go quite a bit, and that was a recent trip over to Crystal River, and that's kind of our passion. When I'm not on tour and he's not on the road, he's actually a sales rep in the fishing industry. He works for Coffee and Associates, and we have some mutual brands that we promote together, Shimano and Costa Del Mar. But anyway, he's in the Southeast, and he comes home whenever he can, and we go to the coast, and that's what we do for fun.
Very cool. All right, I want to ask you this. Was this a weird New York swing because of all the additional stuff that you had to do? And what are your thoughts to the extent that you guys had to go through to get those two events in?
Yeah, it was pretty anxious going in. I can tell you that. There was a thread of emails that got circulated by among the anglers. I can't remember who initiated that thread, but there was a lot of concern, and even some top-level pros that have been through the grind on a lot of different occasions under a lot of different circumstances. They had serious concerns. Right up to the 11th hour, these guys were really anxious about going up there, the fear of which was being test positive for COVID-19 and what that might mean. What it might mean for quarantine. Would you be monitored and held under house arrest at some facility? Would you forfeit the season because you couldn't fish 2 tournaments back to back? I mean, those tournaments were consecutive weeks, 2 immediately, one followed the other immediately. And had you tested positive at the first one, it's a pretty good chance you weren't going to fish the second one, and that killed your season. To accommodate that, Bass did a pretty righteous thing. They said anybody that's on tour this year automatically qualifies for next year. Whether you test positive or not, you have a guaranteed spot for next year. And originally that wasn't the case. They were going to cut 10 guys. So now those 10 at the bottom have no fear of losing their spot for next year. But anyway, there was a lot of concern, and me included. That's a long way to drive to find out you can't fish. But fortunately, everybody tested negative, and we were all able to fish. And even the service crew, the assigned media, the bass staff, everybody passed with flying colors. And we practiced social distancing. We did the CDC guidelines, and everybody did their part. And I think once we were there, the township of Clayton was very receptive to us. I think they were anxious coming in, but once we got there, and then Plattsburgh was also equally receptive. Every place I went, they were glad we were there.
All right, very cool. One quick question for the instant feedback. Mike in New York wants to know, did you see any significant difference in the grass and the vegetation this time compared to previous times that you were on Champlain?
Only that the water level put the grass so shallow it was almost unfishable in most places down south. Interestingly, there was more water up north. And I know that doesn't sound like it's possible, but it is. If they don't let it out as quick as it's coming in, it can raise the water level at one end of the lake. So anyway, I found weed beds with 3 and 4 feet of water on them up north where and I'm talking about milfoil beds, shallow grass beds, versus down in Ticonderoga, 2.5 feet was the deepest I ever found grass, and it was patchy.
Wow. All right. So what are your thoughts for the remainder of the season? Obviously, Santee Cooper in the fall. Gunnersville. There's going to be some events that I am really, really curious to see how they play out.
Yeah, I'm excited about the rest of the schedule. Happy we still have one more smallmouth event in New York at Detroit. Not New York, I'm sorry, at Michigan and Detroit. Excited about that. And then we go south, and all the lakes are agreeable to me. I'm going to spend a little time and try to get refamiliar with those lakes. But it's a great schedule. Bass has done a great job. I mean, you have to recall that they basically were forced to cancel the Sabine River, and Cayuga was going to be the makeup event, which I was really excited about, but then that didn't work out. So now, to Bass's credit, they moved it again to Gunnersville. So we have a complete schedule. They're doing everything in their power to make this happen, and it's good for the anglers, it's good for the sponsors, and hopefully good for the fans.
All right. Anything else, Matt?
Yeah, I got 2 things. One of which is I wanted to commend you for that article you wrote earlier this year on the first walking topwater. I actually am going to send that link to Jeffrey, since that's one of the 2 baits that he throws. It's kind of like it's almost like a mystery article for the first. Like you're like, there's like some interesting twists and turns for the first kind of walking style bait. And along that, we had Maynard. I got to grab it behind here, but while I've got you, I'm going to ask about him because Maynard knew about him.
What are you grabbing? Hang on.
Oh, I got something for me. Okay.
Yeah. Maynard sent us those Floyd's buzzers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you know about the Floyd's buzzers? Because we've got them back here on the deal is like the kind of inline buzz bait deal. It actually says on the blade. Oh, not that one. Just one. Interesting. It says Floyd's baits actually on the blade. So you got to know something about this deal. What's the deal with the Floyd's buzzers?
Yeah, it's an inline buzz bait. It's really good at traversing topped out grass or not mats like you'd walk a frog over, but grass that's touching the surface and has a film of water. That thing will come right through it. Hildebrand even marketed that bait for a while. Bass Pro liked it so much they knocked it off and called it the Uncle Buck's buzzer. But it's still a very productive lure if you can get your hands on one.
Well, I got 2. I got my hands on 2 of them, Bernie.
Well, you need to get them off the shelf and in your tackle box.
Really?
There you go.
Would you keep the bucktail on the back here?
Fish it just like it is, and you might want to trim the weed guards. It has 2 weed guards.
Yep.
You might want to shorten those. But the Floyd's buzzer is an excellent buzz bait. I wish they still made them.
But it's got mainly around grass.
Well, that's what it was designed for. Yeah.
Okay.
Or flooded terrestrial grass or maybe flooded brush. It's something that comes. I mean, it'll come through just about anything.
I'll tell you what. I'm gonna top 10 the Bassmaster Open coming up on Sam Rayburn.
There you go.
On the Floyd's buzzer with the yellow bucktail on the back.
That would be epic. That would be cool.
I mean, that sounds like where Bernie told me you're supposed to fish them.
Yeah.
Well, before you let me go, I got a couple. Since we're talking about lures, I got a couple
Okay.
old lures for you here. Because we're fishing Detroit next week. This is if you can see that. See if I can get some light on it.
Oh, that's a spy bait, Bernie. That's clearly
It
a spy bait from the 1950s.
Yeah.
It kind of is, really. In fact, I did an article called The First Spy Bait, which wasn't this lure. It was one that preceded it, but this is 1903 right here. Here's the box it came in, and it says North Channel Minnow, which is one of the 3 streams that feed into Lake St. Clair.
Huh.
And from the St. Clair River. And it was made, if you look really close, let me see if I can get it up there. It says Detroit, Michigan, Detroit Bait Company at the bottom of the box, and it sold for 75 cents. That was a lot of money back then.
Wow.
And anyway,
Wait, hold that up again. I would, if you plan on throwing that, I would clear that with trip. There are 5 sets of treble hooks on that lure.
yeah, this thing's probably not legal, but I can promise you this one will never touch water. It'll have to be a flood if it does.
So that was not fished like a prop bait. That it actually sank?
This is a sinking lure. Yeah, it's got belly weights that made it descend slowly. I don't know if they're really showing up for you.
Mm-hmm.
There's some belly weights there. Hand painted gill marks. It's kind of crude. The early baits, a lot of them were crudely made, crudely painted, but it's got glass eyes. It's got 5 treble hooks. There was a 3 hook version. And it was designed to be trolled or cast and reeled slowly through the water column.
Very cool. Yeah, if you're listed on iTunes, basically think of a devil's horse a little thicker, bigger around, and then instead of having one set of treble hooks in a line, they're actually like 2 pairs of treble hooks next to each other. So the body has like 4 sets of treble hooks. You're talking about 15 points on that bait. Probably did not come through cover very well, Bernie.
No, probably not.
That's an open water Lake St. Clair trolling bait.
Whatever touched it probably got hooked. I got a couple others if you're interested.
Yeah, what else you got?
I don't know if I showed you this one last time. This is a Hosmer frog. It was made in 1936. I don't know if that looks familiar to you. Well, the lighting's not very good, is it? What's cool about this frog is it swims. It actually has a spring mechanism, and as you pull the bait, it actually swims through the water. So you see the legs, It actuates the legs.
What year was that?
1936. And
wow, that's
there's
cool.
the box for it also. Hosmer Mechanical Froggy.
The mechanical frog.
Dean Rojas, eat your heart out. And then this is a cool one. This is made in St. Augustine, Florida. This is a celluloid shrimp. It was intended for fresh and salt water. In freshwater, they called it a grass shrimp, but it's made of celluloid. I don't know if you can see my
Yeah,
hand.
100%.
Yeah, it's cool. It's got a jack chain that runs through the center of the body. I can't get enough light on it for you. I'm sorry.
No, yeah, I got it. But the line tie is like under the head of the shrimp?
It is. It's under the head, and it articulates. You can see the body move. It's got multi-segments, and it's got the eyes are hat pins they're ladies' hat pins from the period in the 30s, 20s, and 30s. And women used them to keep their hats on their head, and they used them for eyes. They're glass beads, and they're black. I'm not even holding it where you can see it. There you go.
Huh. And then then the tail just articulates. Is that like a wire through the entire tail of that bait then?
Yeah, the wire goes all the way to, it's actually a chain, and it goes all the way to the tail hook. And you basically accentuate the action with your rod.
Who made that again?
This is called a Super Strike shrimp. It was by the Florida Artificial Bait Company, and they were made in St. Augustine, Florida. And this particular shrimp is early enough. It was made from the parts of a celluloid flying machine, believe it or not. There was a pilot that was testing a bicycle-driven type flying machine. He got tethered behind a car down the beach, and a lot of people, like the Wright brothers, tested their flying machines on the beach. Well, this guy got tethered behind a car to get airborne, and then he pedaled a bicycle mechanism to keep the wings flapping. And unfortunately, he crashed and destroyed his plane, but not all was lost, because the pyralin, or the celluloid that was used to wrap the plane, was purchased by the dentist that made these shrimp in St. Augustine, and he made the shrimp with that material.
Wow. Hey, Maynard's on the instant feedback, and he wanted you to know, did you know that Pat Floyd worked with Hildebrandt in Logansport, Indiana?
I think I mentioned that. Hildebrandt made the Floyd's buzzer for a while, and he's right. And I wish the new owners out in Yakima Bait Company in Yakima, Washington, would be listening to this, because they'd sell a lot of Floyd's buzzers. It was a good buzz bait, still is. They're just almost impossible to find.
Yeah. I feel like that shrimp, the company that made that was like the live Target of the 1930s. I mean, it looked like it.
Yeah.
I like that. Well, there's not a lot of new ideas in fishing. I mean, I did a whole series for Bassmaster in my column, a first of series, the first swim bait, the first frog, the first
Whopper plopper.
Yeah, the first Whopper plopper. It was in the 30s. So, the first hollow bodied frog was 1895. A rubber hollow bodied frog. I talked about that last time we did our show. So a lot of this stuff is coming back around full circle, and it still catches fish.
You think you could cash a check using stuff made before 1950 on the Elite Series against guys fishing today? Like, could you have gone to we'll say Champlain and cashed a check, never used a bait made after 1950, but you get all your tackle and all that, just your lures have to be 1950 or before?
Yeah, but it'd probably take every bit of that check to pay for them. I mean, old lures aren't cheap, but no, to be honest with you, they did not have drop shots back in the day. They may have had a live bait rig that was comparable, but they didn't have soft plastics like Yamamoto makes or Z-Man makes. It has been an evolution, a lot of improvement in materials, and we're really fortunate to be on the receiving end of what's coming these days.
All right, very cool, Bernie. Can't thank you enough for taking time out. Great stuff, and wish you the best for the remainder of the Elite Series this year, man.
Thank you. I love you guys. Appreciate you having me on.
All right, man. Take care, Bernie.
You too.
All right. There you have it. Bernie Schultz. Good stuff. All right, Matt, we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back with Bradley Hallman.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I love talking to Bernie.
Oh, he's awesome.
The wealth of knowledge and the stuff he knows about that is incredible.
Good stuff. All right, everybody, stay tuned. We'll be right back.
All of us on the Pro Tournament Trail use Gamakatsu hooks.
Why?
Because they are absolutely the best.
It's not about how many bites you get.
It's how many you put in the boat.
Gamakatsu makes hooks for every fishing style.
We didn't come this far to lose fish.
Did you?
For more information, visit gamakatsu.com.
The Big Bite Baits Kamikaze Swim On is a very unique bait, and it's got a full body but with ribs to give it a bigger profile but not more plastic. It's got a jointed tail that gives it a lot of action, as well as this up and down crawl type trail with holes and ribs in it, so it creates a bubble trail almost. This bait is supposed to be fished upside down or vertical like this on a great for a chatterbait. I prefer it on a swim jig as well, but you can also cut it down and put it on the back of a finesse jig. Flip it around for some spotted bass or flipping docks. Anytime you want a small, compact, little trailer for it, this is great for it. So check out the full lineup of swim-ons at bigbitebaits.com. professional angler, you've got so many things on your mind. Any advantage that we have is key. And not only rods and reels and lines and baits, but in our clothes. And the guys at AFCO, they have something for every situation. There's nothing AFCO hasn't thought about with the fishermen in mind. It's designed for fishermen, by fishermen, for every scenario you can come to. Any fish, any water, any condition, AFCO has you covered.
Yeah, you care about gear ratios, inches per turn, and ball bearings, but most importantly, you want reliability and dependability in the equipment you use. Lew's doesn't cut corners when it comes to the gear they build. The new Speed Spool LFS is the best $99 reel in the market. Go see for yourself.
The name SPRO says it all. SPRO stands for Sports Professionals. When you look at the pro staff that SPRO has brought on board over the past 15 years, it's been pretty incredible. I mean, one got it just then. From the development of the rock crawler to the McStick, from the Fat Papa to the Little John series, when you tie a SPRO bait on, you know it's been designed by a professional to get the job done.
All right, we are back on a Tuesday. Good stuff with
It will come in and out of cover. You hear that?
What is that?
I don't know. That's Tactical Bassin talking about the BFE.
Really?
We've officially made it big time, Bradley. The BFE has made it to the heads of Matt Allen and Tim Little at Tactical Bassin. I just saw it on that. I had to pull it up during the commercial break.
Very nice.
He
Bradley,
broke it down.
How are you doing, man?
I'm alive and well. Been a while. I wish I was in studio this morning. I would like to have just come down, but we need just a few more days probably separate us.
Yeah. A lot of people want to know how you're doing, man, health-wise.
Man, the COVID was for real for me. Like, I didn't expect – I figured, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 days I'd be sick and I'd get better. Dude, I was in bed for 2 weeks. I could have gotten up, but it was just one of them deals where, like, you'd wake up in the morning, you'd be like, all right, you're laying there and you're thinking, I feel better. And you get up and go to the bathroom or something and come back and you'd be like, damn, I'm already running the temperature again. And you'd start feeling kind of rough and you take your Tylenol and be like, golly, all I did was just walk to the bathroom and back. So you'd lay back down and go back to sleep. And I'd wake up and it'd be like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm like, hey, it was a rough go for me. It was just a lot of flu type symptoms, just temperature and fever and cough, and of course I lost my sense of smell and all that stuff. Dude, it really sucked. Like, I wouldn't wish it upon anyone. It was not good.
Officially, I don't know any other anglers, professionals that got the COVID-19. I mean, do you know of anybody, Bradley?
I don't know of anybody else besides myself that's had it. I'm the only unlucky one, I guess. I bet before this thing's over, we're all going to have it. You know what I mean? Don't y'all think?
I hope not.
Everybody will have it?
I think some people had it after the Classic, honestly. Before it really got into the swing, there were a lot of guys that got sick. There were a lot of people that worked the Classic that got sick, never really got tested. So I think there were a lot of people that did get it after the Bassmaster Classic.
I know when we were there after we left, that was when we were there, you saw a lot of hand sanitizer and different things, but there was no masks. And we were all just fortunate probably because that was a lot of people and a lot of shaking hands at that place for sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's been a while. I talked to you yesterday. It's been a while since you fished, especially competitively, since you put the bass boat in with the goal of finding 5 big bass and weighing them in. You got to be ready to get back at it. You had the Eastern Open that was canceled on Oneida. It's going to be rescheduled later. You got a month before the upcoming Central Open on Sam Rayburn. You're sitting decent in the overall points to be in the top 4 to qualify for the Elite Series. But I mean, have you turned your thoughts back to fishing, or is it still like health and organizing your 9 million pegboards in the garage?
Well, the pegboards in the garage was kind of just my way of spending time doing something, fishing to work on it. I moved recently and I've got a new garage and just trying to get that all organized. Dude, I had 20 years of tackle. that I had to do something with. It's all in boxes, and it's been a mess for many, many years. This is a problem. It's been outstanding. So I did that, yes, but that allowed me to do something while I was kind of healing up. There's no doubt, dude. I don't feel like I even know how to catch a bass right now. Like, it's really got me.
Really?
I mean, I could probably take my 4-year-old out there and she'd probably stomp a mud hole in me if I put her in the boat. I've got to go. There's no doubt. I'm looking forward to going, and my mind is definitely starting to turn that direction.
Man, the response that I've seen on the BFE has been tremendous, Bradley.
Man, has it not been? You know, he was talking about some of the guys using it. You know, we talked about, I talked about that bait and how coast to coast and designed coast to coast. You know, my boy, Nate Slate, lives up in Michigan. And he just made the Michigan State team. They do it in 2 days, back to back. That's how they do their state qualifiers for their federation or nation. And he actually, on Lake Huron, dude, Lake Huron. Yeah, BFE, whipped them suckers up, 5.5 pound largies.
Really?
How about that?
So here's the crazy thing. Brad had some other BFEs that were sent to his old house, so he still only has black, blue fleck, and hematoma. And I don't have any of the new colors. I only have black, blue fleck, and hematoma.
Yeah.
That's the only colors we've actually seen in person.
Well, I got sick, and they did mail them to me, but they mailed them to my old house, and I haven't gone down there to get them. And it's only in Norman. It's not that far away, but I haven't been because I was sick and everything else. I haven't got out of the house. But
what are they, sitting on the porch?
I have no idea where they are.
I like see it on Instagram. They're like someone with it. I'm like, oh, that's a cool color. I like how the green pumpkin turned out. It's a good look at that BTL color looks really good. And I was gonna go get them at Lucky Lure up at OKC, but then I heard they were sold out. They were getting a new shipment in.
Hey, you want me to go by there on my way to school? You know, I have to go right by your house.
You do. I'll get down there. I imagine my wife will end up going to the office or something in Norman sometime this week. So, like I say, we've both just been like, this whole house has had the COVID, so we haven't been out and we haven't had contact with anybody. So we've kind of been sheltered in place sickness. So,
did you watch the Elite Series?
Do what?
Did you watch the Elite Series at least the 2 weeks? I mean, you had some stuff on TV to watch.
Absolutely. That's all I had to do was sit there and watch them. It was great. I mean, I had them on the big screen on ESPN2, and then I had them on the internet whenever they weren't on ESPN. Which, by the way, was a ton of coverage on ESPN.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys talked about that. That was a lot of coverage. Speaking of you guys' shows, man, yesterday, dude, I'm not gonna lie, that was a killer show. I mean, killer show. He was throwing out some gold. If you're interested in smallmouth and Lake Erie, and you want to know how to catch one, I mean, it was there yesterday, was it not?
Yeah, Frank's awesome, man. I've known Frank for a long time, and it's unfortunate that he had to end his professional career from a tournament standpoint. But there are very, very few people that have the knowledge that Frank has.
Oh man, when he started talking about understanding your environment and glacier deposits, I was all in. And it was so bad. I actually called Panger yesterday, and I was like, dude, why did you change the subject to Kentucky Lake? Who cares? We're learning about Lake.
But I wasn't changing to Kentucky Lake. I was simply drawing a parallel between pelagic fish that are impossible to intercept. I didn't mean for him to go off on the Kentucky Lake deal. I asked a long-winded question that I'm sorry. We could have heard a lot more about glaciers and isolated boulders.
Yeah.
That was actually a new term that I had not heard before either, and I want to talk about this. Is it pelagic or pelagic?
So a pelagic fish, in my opinion, the way I understand it, is like a billfish that's in the blue water in the ocean, and they literally have no home range, and they just swim around and they follow the bait. So that's like marlin, sailfish, any billfish is like a pelagic, meaning they roam. And this could be totally wrong. Inform me on the instant feedback if it's not. So it's like it's a saltwater term, but the freshwater fish that are pelagic, then you're referring to like those fish that don't live on the boulders, but literally like chase bait. So like a lot of the blueback herring lakes, is a blueback herring is originally a saltwater fish that has to like swim to survive. They're a pelagic bait fish, and then that's why the spots in largemouth on blueback lakes act like stripers, because yeah, they might set up on cane piles and stuff, but as a whole, they're following the bait fish just like a blue marlin would follow the bait fish out in the ocean. So it's just kind of like a saltwater term adapted to the freshwater for fish with no home range.
Right. I just learned a tremendous amount yesterday listening to him in a short period of time. Like, his knowledge is incredible.
Yeah, cool stuff. All right, man, I don't know if you want to reflect, but can you tell us anything about your trip to Florida? Fishing.
Yeah, we had a great time. That was before I got sick, so that was always a good thing. I met Castledine down in Texas, and we flew from Dallas down to Keys and went down with Scott Martin. He's got a new Freeman offshore boat, and we just went down there just to kind of hang out and have a good time. Did a little bit of filming, a little bit of YouTube stuff, primarily for Scott stuff. We had a great time, man. I mean, it was just, it was scheduled. What we tried to do is we knew that ICAST was going to be canceled, and all of us kind of had that already circled on our calendar, those dates, to be at ICAST. And so Scott was like, hey, man, I got this new boat. It'd be a good time. You guys come down. We'll do a little offshore fishing. We went and fished. We chased some swords around. That was my big thing. I wanted to catch a sword, and we hooked up one of them. We hooked one up and pulled loose, of course, and that was the only bite we had. So then the next day we went straight out there like we were going to like really suck in on the sword fishing. Yeah, Scott's patience is not very long. His attention span is very short. He has to do something all the time. He told me about an hour in. We'd only been out there for an hour, and he was like, man, I'm just not into this sword fishing thing. He wants the bites, like everything's got to happen real quick for him. But, man, we had a great trip. We caught a lot of fish, caught a lot of tuna fish and different things, and had a great time.
But that's what Shadow Bassin said. Pelagic fish live in the pelagic zone of the ocean or lake waters, being neither close to the bottom nor near the shore, in contrast with demersal fish, Demersal, that do live on or near the bottom. Basically, to me, it sounds like a fancy word for suspended.
How do you think your pronunciation of pelagic? Do you think that's correct?
Pelagic. Yeah, that's how I said it.
Okay.
The pelagics. I mean, like, I'm seeing, like, Blue Water on the BBC Planet Earth where he's like, now we move out to the pelagics. Like, that's... And I feel like in my head I've heard him say that, where he's like, now the marlin come, enjoying the buffet.
He did that pretty good. That was good stuff.
This is a land of nothing.
Okay, Grasshopper. That's what I turn on at night when I'm ready to go to sleep. Like in my
that
TV
stuff
in my
is
room.
awesome.
I'll turn his voice on because he always puts me to sleep.
Yeah. Blue World will blow your mind.
Yeah. Cool stuff.
Dude,
all right, man.
That was a great part of the deal yesterday. I mean, I think that pelagic area of the lakes is definitely where the future of bass fishing is headed, hopefully. And leave me a couple more bushes on the bank while they do it.
All right, dude. What's up next for Bradley?
September, we start the BASS Opens. It's kind of been put off on hiatus, and we've got 5 or possibly 6 events left at the end of the year. I don't know what they're going to do with the New York event, but we've got 5. So we've got a couple every month starting in September, and we're going to start back off at Rayburn. Excited about going back to Texas. Obviously, we all spend a lot of time down there. The guys around part of the country. Rayburn's a phenomenal fishery and fishing really well this year. It's a lot of giant fish. You guys saw the giant bag that came out there this spring that was stupid in that team tournament, over 40 pounds. Panger's coming down for that one, right? Grasshopper?
Yeah, no, I'm fishing it, and I've Brad and I have just talked in generals. I don't think Brad's all in on my game plan. I think he thinks I might be missing a few pieces of the puzzle.
No, I just think it's a difference between your style and my style. I am not going to go down there with a spinning rod, and you've got some spinning rod plans.
Right. I'm also of the, I don't want to know what else exists. There's fish from one end of that lake to the other end of that lake. It's not like a lake where it's like, it's like, oh, they don't live up in this. So there's fish from one end to the other. I don't want to see one end from the other. I want to see a little bitty section and then not even know that the rest of it exists. I know I'm missing the boat. I know I'm missing the winning pattern. But I also know that in that little bitty stretch that I'm planning on fishing, there's got to be 10 keepers in there. I mean, it's Sam Rayburn, for good God.
No, I mean, I've had a lot of tournament success going into a lake like what you're talking about and picking a section, and you spend your limited practice time in that section. But I've also, I've traveled enough and traveled with enough guys that I've seen guys that cover a lot of water, and it's a lot easier to catch fish that are biting in a place. Most places are just easy to catch them. You know what I mean? And if you don't cover enough water, then you don't see those areas. Whereas if you just lock yourself into one particular section of a lake before you get there and practice, and you say, this is the only place I'm going to practice, hell, you might have locked yourself into the roughest, toughest place to get a bite, while the guys down at Ticonderoga are freaking every flip and talking about 5-pounders coming out of the chestnuts. You know what I mean?
No, I hear you. And I've been lucky in the past year and a half. A lot of the sections that I've picked, I've been, look over and I'm like, okay, I'm in the right section. And guys do that all the time. I mean, you see, someone who's really good on the rivers there, you're like, okay, I picked the right section. It happened on Table Rock. I saw Casey Scanlon on Table Rock, and I saw, guys who are good in Texas down there. So, yeah, I mean, I haven't had that deal over the past year and a half where I pick a section and it's just like crickets. And then I might reevaluate it. But, I think there's a lot of water within a section. I think if you take a section, I mean, think about it, dude.
Okay, well, let me give you an example. Let's say that you would have gone to Champlain during that last Elite Series, and you being from where you're from in this part of the country, you just say, I'm not messing with the smallmouth. I don't want to mess with smallmouth. Ticonderoga always has got them, especially late in the summer, which would be true. There were some other factors that went against it, but still, that being said, you said Champlain's too big of a lake, much bigger than Sam Rayburn. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to go to Ticonderoga and practice for 3 days, and that's where I'm going to fish my tournament.
Yeah, I'd have gotten my ass kicked there.
Mm-hmm.
You 100%, because you can apply that same logic. It's Ticonderoga. There's a history of it there. There's larger. There's 100%. Everything there. Casey Scale won it out of time. I mean, it
was won there last year. 100%. Yeah.
But dude, there's no way I can compete. Literally, if I go out there and try to look around the entire lake, I'm going to find 3 or 4 areas. And I mean, the guys have thousands of areas. How long does it take for you to fish around your pond? You can fish around the pond behind your house in like 2 hours. And you can throw a bunch of different stuff. That's like a half-acre pond. I mean, I'm talking about a 5 to 10 mile stretch of the lake that I'm going to fish in. It's not like I'm like, okay, this cove and that's it. I mean, there's a lot of fishable water within a small area that you can do a bunch of different stuff, and you can find fish that are biting where other fish aren't, in my opinion.
No, I definitely agree with what you're saying. And like I say, I've done it both ways successfully, and I've done it both ways unsuccessfully. I've had both. I just think that you're overall better off to try to look at as much water as you possibly can. I don't know how. I do this every time. Leave my phone on.
Jeffries does it about every third show.
Every now and then. All right. Can you see that question there, Bradley? They want to know, what's your favorite hook for the BFE?
It depends. And so this is complicated. I mean, this is how I designed that bait. When I flip bushes and wood, certain parts of the lake, I am not a braid guy. I don't like braid. And when I flip fluorocarbon, which is what I use when I'm flipping bushes or wood or willow trees, I flip in fluorocarbon, and so I don't use a straight shank hook because I don't like tying a snail with fluorocarbon to a straight shank. I don't like it. Never have. I use an EWG style hook, which you'll hear a lot of guys, and I mean some of the best flippers in the world will tell you that they do not like that hook. That's not a good flipping hook. But I will tell you that I don't have the issues that those guys have. I use that hook for many, many, many years, ever since the invention of the tube. I've got some things that I do to the hook sometimes, but it is the hook that I flip with, and I have a tremendous amount of hookup success, and I don't have issues with it. And so the 4/0 EWG style hook is probably the number one hook that I use with fluorocarbon. Now, when I'm flipping grass and stuff, it's a different deal. Or someplace like Rayburn that's got 8-pounders, even in the bushes there, you're forced to flip braid. The reason I don't like the straight shank hook, and another reason I don't like the straight shank hook in wood, is I feel like it just gets hung up all the time, and I'm all about efficiency. And if I'm getting hung up all the time, it just drives me nuts. Whereas that EWG style, I can run the hook through and then kind of text pose it back through, and it doesn't seem to come through. So like when you pull up against you flip in there and you come up against a willow tree, that it's a little bit easier to come over the top without it getting hung. With the braid, I do like the straight shank, especially mat flipping, anything Florida up north, anything like that consists of grass fishing. Rayburn, like we're about to go, it's going to be a 4/0 straight shank FPP Hayabusa. 100%. Everything's going to be straight shank. So, but that bait is designed to hold a 5/0 in both if you want them. I like as big a hook as I can get away with. I like the big gap in it. It's just sometimes the smaller hook allows that bait to slip in and out of tighter holes, depending on what I'm flipping.
All right, there you have it. Dude, we got to get you back in studio soon.
I know. I want to come back in and interview some people. I wish I'd have been in yesterday. My gosh, I'd have had a couple of questions for sure.
You still have the sticker on that hat?
No.
Oh, sorry. I thought I saw that sticker on the hat. I was like, man, the BFE success is going to him. He's wearing the hat with the stickers now.
Hats with the stickers.
Jeez, man. All right, dude, we're gonna let you go. I know a lot of people out there are very happy that you're doing well, and we'll get you back here in studio very, very soon, man.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right, man. Take care, Bradley.
All right, see you, boys.
All right,
see ya.
All right, there you have it, Matthew, and glad he's doing good. I know it was a tough battle there for a little while.
Mm-hmm. Roughly halfway through the first day of the final stop on the Tackle Warehouse super tournament up on here. You want to guess who's 1 and 2?
No, I have no idea.
Josh Bertrand, Justin Lucas.
Yeah, they can catch a few.
They're pretty good with the spinning rod and the smallmouth stuff.
They are pretty good.
You think you could? How many guys do you think you could get for a summertime professional smallmouth trail? You just hit the Northeast from June through September.
A bunch.
You have 6 stops at a $2,500 entry fee.
A bunch. Seriously, I really think so.
And you can only weigh in smallmouth. It's a smallmouth only tour.
I think you get a bunch.
And I think you do it your best 5 catch, weigh, release on your best 5.
We need to talk about that.
Because that way you can, you know what I mean? You don't have to bring them in and you can hit the best stuff. I mean, you could even go and do a Simcoe deal. And I mean, there's stuff all across that Northeast. I think you'd have some guys during that kind of break where there's not a lot of tournaments.
Yeah.
Get a little smally derby in there, like just a trail for
it. I like it. We'll talk about that on Monday. All right, folks. No show the remainder of the week. I've got training I've got to take care of, but we will be back on Monday. Make sure you check out the website for the schedule on Sunday evening. I'll post it then. And I want to thank Bernie Schultz, Bradley Hallman for being on the show today. Remember, please, if you're listening to us on iTunes, please leave a review. Give us a rating. It helps us out tremendously. Matthew, you have fun. Go catch some more sand bass, man.
I'm done sand bass. I got my fix.
Got your fix.
Yeah, I got a derby on Grand.
All right. Good luck with that. That's it, everybody. We're back on Monday. We're out of here.